Hi friends! Today I'm going to continue rebuilding my Volvo 340 engine, and since we did the cylinder head last week, I'm now going to continue with the short block. Okay, so for those of you that are new to my channel, I pulled the engine from my Volvo 340 to rebuild it because I blew my head gasket and my piston rings were bad. In the previous weeks I've repainted the engine itself and various parts that are attached to it. Last week I started the rebuild by replacing my valve seals and grinding the valves to get the cylinder head ready. And now it's time to rebuild the short block. Okay, so I actually wanted to keep both the crankshaft and the cylinder sleeves in place and just replace the piston rings because that was the plan. But many of you guys have suggested me to remove the crankshaft and the cylinder sleeves as well, so I can replace those bearings and gaskets. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to start by removing the timing chain. Well, first the timing chain cover, so I can take the crankshaft out. Well, that's it for the timing chain. Now let's turn the engine upside down and remove the crankshaft. Now it's just these 10 bolts to remove the crankshaft. I'm going to try and loosen them by hand because I always prefer doing that, so I don't break anything. But yeah, let's see if I can. Well, that didn't work, so I'm going to get my impact and use the lightest setting. I've got something else I want to try first. By the way, these caps are all numbered, so that will make it a bit easier when putting everything back in place. Now let's pull the crankshaft out. Okay, so we can now have a better look. I'm going to replace these bearings and also the thrust bearings that are on both sides here. And I was also thinking that I could remove the cylinder sleeves by tapping from this side, because I couldn't get them out by hand because they're kind of rusty, I think. So that's what we're going to try before putting the crankshaft back in, because we can reach it easier right now. Okay, so I ripped my other gloves and now I'm wearing my friend's gloves, which are like 10 sizes too big, but gotta be careful with my hands, right? I'm really hoping that this will work. I want to be careful because I don't want to damage anything. Okay, I'm going to turn off my camera because this video will be half an hour long, I think, but I'm going to try and continue tapping from this side and hopefully I can loosen them or something, but I'm kind of scared I'll have to keep them in. So it actually took me like half an hour to tap the cylinder sleeves out, but I did get them out. But look at how rusty they are. That's why they were so stuck. I do want to get rid of as much rust as I can, so I'm going to sand the outsides of the cylinder sleeves and this part of the engine a bit. I'm going to do that before I put the crankshaft back in, so I don't get bits of rust and dirt between my new parts. So yeah, let's start sanding and then we can splash it down and then put the crankshaft back in. Okay, so I won't be able to get every bit of rust off, which isn't the goal anyways, but this one looks a whole lot better than this one I haven't done yet. I did get all the big chunks off, which was the main goal of the sanding. So I did the same thing for the engine block by getting rid of the big chunks of rust. And I mainly focused on getting these parts clean, because that's where the new gaskets are going to be. Now let's turn the engine over again, and then we can put the crankshaft back in. With all the new bearings, of course. Now let's remove the old bearings. And then clean these surfaces really well. So I can put the new bearings in place. Which is really hard with these big gloves. Because I can't feel anything. Now it's time to install the new bearings, and these are the ones I'm going to use. Let's unpack these. So the most important part when replacing these bearings is to make sure that there's no oil in between the engine block itself and the bearing. So you only put oil between the bearing and the crankshaft. So even though these are new, I'm still going to wipe them off because there is some oil in the packaging. And then I'm going to put them in place. Now onto the thrust bearings. There's only 2 of them on both sides right here. Same goes for this. Just cleaning before installing, and you gotta make sure that these it doesn't focus. Well, these oil channels, I don't know, are faced outwards towards the crankshaft. Now before I put the crankshaft back in, I'm going to clean it a bit. I don't think it really matters, but there's old oil in it and I just want to use new oil. So that's why I'm cleaning it. So before I put the crankshaft in place, I'm going to put some oil on the bearings. This is just some new oil, but I put it in here because it's easier. Same goes for the caps. I'm going to clean them and then put the new bearings in, making sure that there's no oil in between. I think that looks good. Now let's put them back in the engine. Now let's put the caps back in place. I did put some oil on the inside of the bearings, but I did it off camera. Okay, now let's torque them all to 60 Newton meters. Alright, well that's it for the crankshaft. So now we can flip the engine over and then we can reinstall the cylinder sleeves and the pistons. Okay, so now it's time to put the cylinder sleeves back in place with the new gaskets. I'll show them to you. These are OEM Volvo gaskets. And they're just these little rubber rings. The older models have paper gaskets. The older B14 engines, but this one has these rubber gaskets. I made sure to clean this very well, and I think I'm going to put the gasket around and then put the sleeve back in place right away. So I'll do this one sleeve at a time. I think this is a bit scary because they're so thin and I don't want to break them. But that was quite easy. I'm now going to hone these cylinders a bit. Maybe I should have done so before installing the crankshaft, but I kind of forgot. So I'll have to clean the crankshaft afterwards, but it will be fine. Well, that helped me get rid of the rust that was inside the cylinder walls. Now let's install the pistons. Okay, for the pistons I decided to work on my workbench because that's why I have a workbench. I'm going to start by replacing these piston rings, which was the whole reason I removed the engine from my car. I'm going to remove the old ones first and then I'll install these new ones. Well, this is the box, but they're in here. And yeah, then we can replace these bearings as well. These are the old piston rings. They're all super rusty and I did break a few because they're old, so I wasn't really careful when removing them. But yeah. Now I'm going to sand these creases where the new rings will be. Okay, you get the point. I'm not going to film doing all of this. I'll be back. Alright, I'm done sanding, so now I'm back to install the piston rings. I don't have a special tool for this, so I'm just going to use my hands. I don't think this is the easiest way, but I don't really have much of a choice. Alright, so the first set of rings is on. I'm just following the instructions on where the gaps should be. And yeah, easy as that. And that's the last one. Okay, now let's remove these end caps so we can replace the bearings. Now let's make sure these are all nice and clean before I put the new ones in. And I'm using a new towel, thanks Mom. These are the new bearings I'm going to use. They're just like the bearings I used on the crankshaft, but a bit smaller. I'd normally put the piston in place and then replace the bearing from the end cap. But since I don't want to move my camera all the time, I'm going to replace the bearings on my end caps right now. And then I'll install the pistons in the engine block, one after another. So my camera died again, for the third time this day or something. But I did replace the last bearing, and now it's finally time to put the pistons back in my engine. I'm going to use this tool to compress the piston rings, because they're too big to go into the cylinder right now. So I'm going to compress them using this tool, and then we can tap the pistons in place. I'm just putting some oil on the bearing. Now let's get it in place. That way. Let's see if I can tighten this a little bit more. Wait a sec. Ready? Take two. Okay, so I tapped it all the way down because I wanted to show you this, but right here you can see the end of the piston, and now I'm going to add the end cap on here. Alright, so the first piston's in place, now let's install the other three. Alright, so all the pistons are in place, which I'm really happy about. I actually wanted to install my timing chain as well today, but since it's already 11 PM and it's a 1.5 hour drive to my home, I'm going to call it a day. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!